My name is Rocky Sams, and I am the Chief Development Officer with CENTEGIX. And today I am honored to speak to Chief Whaley of the Douglas County School System in Georgia. Welcome, Chief. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Fantastic, fantastic. We are definitely enjoying having conversations with thought leaders in the area of safety and security, especially in the school district arena. And we're honored to have you today for several reasons, obviously because of your experience and the fact that, Douglas County School District was one of the first districts in Georgia to implement CrisisAlert. And then just another hidden fact that I happen to know Mr. North very well, and I'm glad to speak with you and represent that illustrious district. And, again, I have nothing but highest regard for Mr. North and his leadership. We go way back during his days as a principal and my days as a principal. So excited to have this conversation with you today.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Good, good. So I want to give you an opportunity, first and foremost, before we get into any questions, to just kind of introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your background, how long you've been in law enforcement, and in particular, how long you've been supporting school districts in the area of school safety, not only in Douglas County, but any other districts where you've served.
So my name is Tracey Whaley. I'm the Chief of Police for Douglas County Schools, as you have just heard. I've been serving in law enforcement for 25 of the last 27 years. I started, you have to excuse me, my office lights are all motion generated, so they'll do their own thing. So I've been serving in law enforcement for 27 years, 25 of the last 27 years. It took 2 years of corporate. I started with the Atlanta Police Department, and I did 10 and a half years there. I retired there as a sergeant. I retired for family reasons so that I could spend more time with my family. 2 years after leaving there and doing 2 years of corporate, I started to work supporting schools in a different school district here in Georgia. So I've supported schools as an SRO, as a supervisor, as a command level officer, and now as chief of police for the last 2 years in Douglas County schools. I've supported schools for the last 15 years.
So that extensive experience is one of the great reasons why we wanted to chat with you today, not only because of the work that you've done, but also the partnership that we've had with your district. So definitely want to give you an opportunity to share not only some of your experiences with our partnership and with our tools and product, but also your experience in how broadly law enforcement is challenging some of the things that are happening in some of our schools today. So without further ado, I want to get into a few questions, if you don't mind, and just want to start honestly by getting your assessment of the state of school safety today. Obviously, we've had a lot of experience, a lot of things that have happened, unfortunately, not only this year and recently, but also in recent years, that is really taxing our safety protocols, but also the individuals who are responsible for carrying out those protocols. Can you talk a little bit, just from your perspective, about the state of school safety and kind of where things are today?
I believe that we're in a times we haven't seen before, where we have to, cross every T, dot every I, and we have to make sure as a priority that our schools are safe, because our society, we haven't been here before. So therefore, schools as a segment of society, we haven't been here before. As you all know, when we were growing up, and I say we, I'm in my early 50s. We didn't have officers in school. We didn't have police officers in schools, but I think that with Columbine, we saw so many years ago, that let us know that we needed to have officers in school as part of school staff to ensure the safety of the students. And as you may know, our jobs as school police officers, as school resource officers, is to keep whatever's outside of the school outside and allow the administrators and the staff to teach the kids and to deal with the students and the issues, the normal issues that come up with students interacting. So at this time in our society, it's our job to make sure what is outside stays out. And one of the things that I like to do, one of the things that our school district likes to do, is to use technology in every way possible to keep what's outside of the schools outside, to keep the students safe for the time that they're there. And CENTEGIX Crisis Alert is probably the best tool that I have seen in my 15 years to keep schools safe, for students and staff to understand that we have this system in place for every staff member to be able, if need be, to alert the entire school and therefore the entire district to an emergency, to allow a school to be secured or locked down, whatever phrase you use, within a matter of seconds, something being discovered or at least a threat being discovered. So I think CENTEGIX is the greatest tool, because the thing that we see in our society is that information is powerful, and communicating and giving information from one point to the other is powerful. And that's what this system does. It allows us to communicate. Whereas before, we relied upon school radios and we relied upon getting the information to the principal. What if the principal was in an observation and he or she couldn't answer the radio, or he or she couldn't answer their phone because they were in an observation? Now this tool lets any staff member communicate that there may be an issue and to get the school secured.
So that's a great testament to how you feel Crisis Alert has supported your work, supported the work of the adults who are responsible for either providing support for students, teaching, education, etc. If you could you go into a little bit of detail? Obviously, the district had to make the choice to choose Crisis Alert, right, and partner with CENTEGIX in the work that you just described. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things you thought about as you were either vetting this partnership or vetting the tool in your usage and the uses in the district? Maybe some things you learned as a result of that vetting process that will be helpful. Could you share maybe some things about that?
Some things I did learn is that there are a lot of products out there, and every product, you're told what it can do for your district. And in looking at CENTEGIX for this district, and in my experience in supporting education, it's the ease of use. I mean, it's not hard to use. It's a simple process of how many times you hit the button. It's a simple process of practicing with the tool so that staff members know what it means to use the key card, and then staff members and students both know when they get an alert what to do. But it's the ease of use is the greatest thing to me, and the fact that it fits right next to our staff ID card, so that you'll know our district, every employee has a photo ID, and they're to wear the photo ID either around their neck or somewhere above the waist on their body. So the CENTEGIX card fits right with that ID card. So it's not a fact of having to remember to get it. It's part of what you do every day.
Got it.
And then other things is that goes into ease of use is there's a component to where it can be used by a teacher or a staff member to contact an administrator when there's an administrative or discipline issue, and not just the code red, not just the entire lockdown of the building. So it has multiple uses. If you remember, back in the days when I started supporting education, there was a button on the wall, and you would push the button, and then it would go to the office, and then the office would call and say, what do you need? Well, if over the years, those buttons got to where they didn't work. And as you were doing work in the buildings, and if you were upgrading your technology in the buildings, you got to where we didn't have a lot of buttons that worked. So that system antiquated. So this system is still cutting edge. And that's the thing that I like. We're using the technology for the ease of communication to help safety.
Well, that's a great point. And one of the things that I'll mention, and I remember, my days as a principal with that wall panic button. You're relying on two things. Three things. One, you're relying on the button actually working.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it does work, you're relying on someone in the front office being available
Mm-hmm.
to receive the notification that, there is something going on in room 212 or whatever the room number is. And then the third thing is that person has the radio, either school administration, school resource officer, whomever is responsible for showing up. So that's 3 steps that's got to be taken just to get help in your classroom. What you described with Crisis Alert is basically 1 step.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, in your role as a law enforcement officer and in your years of experience, time is an issue. It could be your greatest asset or adversary, depending on the situation.
Exactly.
And so we have to get information quickly to those who are designated to respond. So that's a great point you made in regards to the migration
Mm-hmm.
from the wall panic buttons and the other traditional methods that may have been in place several years ago to leveraging technology in a new and more efficient way.
And let me say this. Let me say this. Another thing that I like about the CENTEGIX and the system is, see, we're now in our summer times. So what a lot of people don't understand about education, and you definitely understand, is this is when we plan for the next year. And
Correct.
there are some employees who will retire. There are some employees where we will hire and bring into the building. And then there are several employees who will say, I want to move to a school closer to my home. So I'm 5 or 10 minutes from home instead of 15 or 20 minutes. So with CENTEGIX, they just take the same badge and go to the new school, and they're automatically registered on the system. By the same token, we can have itinerant employees who, for instance, school nurses who have 2 or 3 schools that they cover. They don't have to pick a new badge up at each school. Their badge works at each school. So if they were to activate the badge, it tells us they're not at school A, they're at school B. The system does that for us.
Yeah, that's again, Chief, another great point where you're literally talking about the fact that the communication is transferable to every site that has been implemented within your district. So it doesn't matter whether it's school to school, whether it's school to district office, whether it's district office to transportation department, or even at your facility that houses school safety. So every facility that has been implemented, that communication pathway is transferable to each site. And that's big because, of course, there are many situations where you're walking into a building, may not be the one that you work in, but you notice something, you see something. And then the ability to be able to alert the crisis team at that site that, hey, I'm walking into your building or I'm walking across your parking lot and I see something that doesn't quite look right and I need someone to come and let me share what I've seen. It's critical, right? It's critical to that whole process of everyone who is involved. When they see something or hear something, they can say something. So that leads more to a more safer environment. So that's a great point, Chief. Glad you shared that one. So one of the things obviously in your role, you're speaking to some very specific use cases. A lot of times, many of them are the ones that you and your teams and your staff prepare for. You hope never happen in your schools or in your district. But obviously, you also mentioned the day-to-day usage, right? The usage for discipline things or medical situations or any inappropriate activity that may happen in a school that's more so aligned with that school activity. Can you share a little bit about maybe some experiences or some of your communication with school-based individuals, whether it's principals or teachers? Have you gotten any feedback from them on the usage of Crisis Alert and how they feel about its effectiveness and the roles they play?
I've spoken to several principals and several teachers and staff members throughout the entire district, and everyone to a person loves CENTEGIX. Everyone loves what they can do. what I hear mostly from staff members are they don't have to try to communicate an emergency to administration. They can communicate emergency through the system, and then that alerts the entire building. And I think I alluded to this a little while ago, is that years ago, everything had to go to the principal. We had to find the principal, let the principal know that there was an emergency. And we would hope it's not a situation where we have to lock the entire building down. Everyone has that same ability. And when people who are vetting our system to possibly become employees here, when they know that we have such a system in the way, in place, that makes them feel more comfortable about working in our district. So I believe it's just another tool that helps us to get highly qualified staff members, because in today's society, we think safety when we go to the grocery store, when we go to our places of worship, and when we go to our schools. And when you know those safety measures are in place, that helps you to be effective and productive.
Well, I mean, again, Chief, another great point where, you know, you're on the outer edges of Metro Atlanta. And so there are a lot of options for employment for teachers and other staff members. And teachers, you know, we find that there are a lot of superintendents, a lot of school districts are using CrisisAlert as a recruitment tool for getting the best qualified staff members, not just teachers, but also, you know, any other persons that work in schools. I'm pretty confident, and maybe I'm being optimistic here, but I wouldn't be surprised if you leverage CrisisAlert in trying to recruit the best staff for your team, and saying that, hey, you know, here's a solution that helps us, you know, when we walk into a situation, we know more information about what's happening because of CrisisAlert than we would without it. So we're not flying blind a lot of times. We're not going into the wrong doors or the wrong situations because of something that may be happening. We have location that is driving a lot of what we're able to identify before we even show up on the scene. So I'm putting words in your mouth, and I hope I'm not. But I'm thinking that you probably have leveraged that a little bit, even retaining and or hiring staff on your team as well.
Yeah, that's exactly what we've done, because it's what you just alluded to, is if a badge is activated, whether it's for medical reasons, whether it's for discipline reasons, or whether it's for a building emergency reasons, the system tells us exactly where the person who activated the alert is. In fact, we have my officers have the CrisisAlert app on their phones. And so the officer who's assigned to that school will get the CrisisAlert. He or she will be able to see exactly where in the building. They'll even know who activated the alert. So I don't have to figure which hall to go to. It's telling me which hall. I don't have to figure which room. It's telling me who the person is, which is going to tell me the room. And not only that, but we get that CrisisAlert in our command center, where my dispatcher and the person who monitors our cameras, they pull it up and they see the exact same thing. So when I have a person who's trying to determine whether they'll come to work for our district or come to work somewhere else, and I show them the tools that we have, they understand not only do we have tools in place, but we're going to continue to try to be on the cutting edge of safety using technology to help us to do our job.
Yes. So just adding to that, right? So, you know, ultimately when you hire and when you train and when you prepare, you know, you also want to have the best, you know, tools, the best resources that you possibly could have. And that may make the difference between, you know, hiring or retaining that top-notch law enforcement officer that you've identified, you've targeted, and you've actually gotten to come on board. And so being able to talk about that in ways by which it's beneficial is definitely something that I think more and more members of law enforcement, I'm sure they're probably thinking about it. It's just making sure that you have the tools that you can use to be a part of that recruitment and retention process. So that's a great point again. One additional question I want to ask, and that, you know, as we've had these conversations with thought leaders, and we've talked to superintendents, we've talked to principals, and we've talked to law enforcement officers as yourself, you know, there are always these stories that resonate, right? That says, you know, because of Crisis Alert, this situation happened, and this was the result that was probably more positive than it would have been maybe otherwise.
Mhm.
And so, you know, it's been very powerful to listen to these stories from stakeholders and also from thought leaders. Are there any stories from Douglas County, your district, that you feel like you can share that it fits in that same scope?
So we're very fortunate in that we haven't had anything close to any of the things that we're seeing on the news. But I can tell you that we've had more than one or two medical situations, because when you have a school district of 23,000 students and over 3,000 employees, we've got nearly 30,000 people in our buildings at one time. You know, a person's medical history will follow them. So when we've had several medical emergencies, and we've had staff members who activated the alert, and that allows us to communicate and to get first responders out as soon as possible. And I mean, from something as simple as a student having an allergic reaction to something that, you know, they're allergic to, that they didn't know was in a particular dish that was in a particular meal, to staff members who, we all have a medical history, who are just having some difficulty, but we're able to alert, we're able to call ambulance, and then that keeps it from being something more serious. I mean, we've had several of those situations, again, because we've got almost 30,000 people in the buildings. We are just fortunate that we haven't had, you know, any of the major threats that we've seen in the news, but in our day-to-day usage, I think we have something almost weekly where we're able to get medical help to a student or to a staff member because of their medical history, and it cuts the time exponentially.
So what you're referencing is something that is a powerful, you know, tool as relates to not just thinking about, again, the whole scale lockdown type events, or even the disciplinary events that you and your team along with school administration may have to respond to, but it's any type of incident, medical, right? These medical events, they have, you know, they've increased, you know, post COVID. Well, I shouldn't say post COVID because COVID's still here. I would say post pandemic.
Mhm.
And in many cases where, you know, kids are either in distress or things of that nature, adults in distress as well. So having the ability to alert for help, and then, you know, getting medical attention there quickly, whether it's a school nurse, or even if you have to do you know, to EMTs or other any type of first responders, you know, those kinds of situations, you know, are a matter, unfortunately, of life and death. And we've had situations in other districts that we've worked with where, you know, because of the time that we're able to get that alert out to the most appropriate personnel, and that personnel can respond as quickly as possible, has made all the difference in the world. And so we continue to want to, you know, make sure that we stay focused on those things. As we continue to improve our product, we think about those things on a regular basis, and that's how we develop different functionalities that are designed to, again, be more of a service in all of those areas. But the primary thing is we're trying to reduce the amount of time. You know, every second matters, and we're trying to make sure that we cut down on some of those. One additional thing I did want to mention, or at least ask you about, and then I'm going to leave time for you to just share anything that I haven't asked you, which is, you know, we talked about, you know, obviously the adults in the building who value having crisis alert. We talked about even your team and maybe how they view having a tool at their disposal. Can you share a little bit? Have you had any conversations or gotten any feedback from parents and or students in regards to how they feel about having the tool? It may not be in their hands directly. It's not in the parents' hands or the students' hands, but knowing that that tool exists for the adults that are assigned to each building. Have you had any feedback from either parents or students?
I have. Our students feel safe because of the system. They recognize the system in the building. They recognize when we perform tests. And when we perform tests, our students take it seriously and they take their safety seriously. So when we perform the tests and we do our drills, the students recognize it as a time to learn. And then they do exactly what they're being taught to do to remain safe. And the students, based upon that, they understand when there is an alert, whether it's for discipline, whether it's for medical or anything, they take it seriously. And then they become part of the team to make sure the school is safe. And so, you know, the society that we live in, when we do have an alert, even when we have a drill, the students text the parents. Well, parents, when they learn the system that we have in place and that we're doing drills and we're practicing, they are more comfortable. Because if you talk to school resource officers around the country, a few weeks ago when we had the unfortunate event in Uvalde, Texas, where people lost their lives, we all got countless calls. 911 got countless calls. And the question that we got undoubtedly was, are the schools safe? And then, of course, we reminded some parents and we let some parents who may not have been aware of the system that we have, the crisis alert system that we have in place. And when they know that, they feel comfortable. They feel comfortable leaving their children at school in our care, knowing that we're taking every step. So across the board, the students and the parents, because of the system, because of our willingness to use the system, they understand why it's in place. They understand what it is in place to do, and they're very appreciative of it.
So yeah, as we engage, like I said, thought leaders who are out here doing the work of providing the most safe and secure learning environments possible for the students they serve. Obviously we want to know what that connection is with those students, how students feel about, and then of course their parents, in making sure that they are comfortable in knowing that their schools and their school district has made investments that are making a difference. So definitely thank you for sharing. I just want to leave some time. Anything that you want to share, either about your relationship or your partnership with CENTEGIX, or anything specific about Crisis Alert that we have not talked about or have not asked about. You just want to give you some time to share.
Yeah, I do. We are familiar at some point in life with making a purchase or making an investment, and then you don't hear from the company again. That is not the case. I'm very pleased with CENTEGIX. I'm very pleased with Crisis Alert. I'm very pleased with the amount and the level of customer service. I mean, when you begin and you make the investment, and I would just love for everyone to see and understand that it's an investment. You invest in safety. You invest in your future. When you make the investment, the level of service and the level of customer service is incredible. But it continues during the entire life of you as a Crisis Alert, of a CENTEGIX member of the family. And that's how I see it. I see it as a member of the family. I'm not a customer. So much that's why I appreciate having the opportunity to be on this call, because I understand. I'm a parent myself. I understand that our schools are safer, and I understand how important it is for those of us who are using the product to stay in contact with the minds behind the product. And I appreciate the willingness for you all to stay in contact with us and to help us stay on top of safety. So if I have to say anything, I say see it as an investment, but see it as a continuing relationship, because that's what we've experienced.
Well, sir, you just summed it up perfectly. We definitely believe that we are partners. Our goal is very simple. It is to help our partners and to help them provide as much as possible, as much as we can, the most safe and supportive learning environment possible. And we do that through continuous improvement of our own product, but also staying in line and in tune with what districts need in the as it relates to alert and incident management. We truly believe that that's our mission, and we take it very seriously. Even though it is a lot of there are unfortunate situations that are happening throughout our country, and it is tragic to say the least. But we really do believe that despite that, our goal is to be as supportive as possible. And any partnership that we have, any district that we work with, we want to make sure that we are doing our due diligence to make sure that we're providing that level of support. So Chief, thank you so much for your time. Greatly appreciate your thoughts, your expression of support for not only our partnership, but also what our product is doing for you personally, your team, and all the faculty, staff, and students of the Douglas County School District. So thank you so much for your time. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.